Can you elaborate and define destroys itself? What does destroys itself mean? Like a company, I'm competing, and then I get too casual, too lazy, somebody else comes and destroys me? Is that what you're saying?
No. This is a situation where there's 500 companies producing, I don't know, potato chips.
Okay.
And one of them comes across a new kind of potato and it goes better. So he can sell more potato chips than the next guy. Because he can sell 10 million bags instead of 2 million bags, he can produce potato chips at less per bag than it costs the other guys who produce a smaller amount. So because he can produce at a lower cost, he drops the price. That swings the demand over to his product and away from the others who can't afford to match him because they don't have the low cost since they don't have the big output. Eventually, one guy is able to get the entire market and he will produce at the lowest possible price and the lowest possible cost. The others go out of business because at the price he charges, close to what his cost is, they can't compete. And so he's left all alone. Once that moment is reached, once he has no more competitors, then he can begin to jack up the price because you don't have anywhere else.
Give me one example. Give me one example of that today. One example of that today.
Why you want it today? It's all through history.
No, give it to me today. Give me one example of that today.
Microsoft. Amazon.
Amazon doesn't have competition and Amazon charges up prices. What's expensive on Amazon?
Amazon has driven almost everybody out of
but what is expensive on Amazon? Name me one thing that's overpriced on Amazon, Richard. Your argument, I want to give it to you. Tell me one thing.
That's not my argument.
You said eventually they raised the price. I'm just repeating what you said. Tell me one thing that's overpriced on Amazon.
They're not ready to at that point yet. They're not the only deliverer.
That's just not possible though, because right now Amazon is scared shitless of Walmart. Right. They're scared shitless of Walmart. That's because capitalism works. Now, my concern is the following. My concern is Bezos moves to DC. He moves to DC. That scares me. He moves to DC. He gets in the pocket of lobbyists. I'm not sitting here, oh my gosh, Jeff Bezos is the greatest entrepreneur. That's not what I'm saying. My concern is his next move is to buy politicians to be able to bully the other guys. That's my concern. I'm not okay for that. But you cannot tell me that the prices at Walmart or Amazon are so expensive. That doesn't make any sense because it's not true.
Well, I mean, it depends what you mean by expensive. But I would tell you that they also make very careful arrangements not to put each other in that competitive situation.
No,
they're exactly aware of what I told you. They're aware that this is a race to see who gets to be the one with the lowest cost, and that whoever that is,
customer wins.
Wait a minute, that's the way the game is played, and that's how you go out of business. These companies then can get together when they've gone down from 50 or 500 to only 6 or 7, and then they work out an arrangement. The history of antitrust is the history of the government breaking in at those times because, like with Amazon and Walmart, there's a reason that Bezos is the richest man in the world and the Walmart family is the richest in the world. They have jacked up the prices above their cost.
Oh my gosh.
Because they have no competition.
It's the complete opposite argument. The argument is John Doe's market in Toledo was selling milk for $4.59. Walmart came in and says, this guy's charging it for too much. We'll sell it to you for $3.59. John had to lower it to $3.49 to be able to compete. It's the complete opposite argument there. No, that argument doesn't have weight behind it, Richard.
It does. It's always been the history. You lower the price, you drive out your competitors, and when you have reached down to 3 or 4...
There's not one example of it today. There's not one example of it today.
Listen, that's the history of the automobile.
But I'm telling you today, you don't have one example of that today. One.
We had a dozen.
But it's overpriced. What are you buying that's overpriced? What are you buying that's overpriced?
Everything you buy from Amazon and Walmart is priced higher than a competitive alternative would price it.
What are you talking about? Everything I buy on Amazon is cheaper than the other places I buy. That's why people are buying on Amazon. So if you would have taken the argument the other way around, that's where I get stuck. So here's a suggestion for you to know that a capitalist gets stuck. The part that I get stuck is if you say to me, well, what about poor Bobby that runs a small market with 7 employees and he can't afford to pay the minimum wage because when Bernie Sanders went up and said, raise the minimum wage, Jeff Bezos, to $15 an hour. And you know what Jeff said? Oh, thank you, Bernie. You just put out 50% of my competition. I will gladly raise it to $15. And our Mr. Socialist, thank you for eliminating my competition. Why? Because none of my competitors in Toledo, Kansas can raise the minimum wage for $15 an hour because it's impossible.